Hey everyone, welcome back to the table. I'm Scott, and today we're going to talk about the top 12 hobby tools that you probably have laying around your house. So when we talk about hobby tools that are common, maybe household items that you have floating around, you can think of a variety of things, maybe like some paintbrushes, retractable knife. Those are extremely helpful. A pair of scissors. These are things that I think are pretty obvious, and we don't need to cover these things. What I'm thinking of is things that you might not think are hobby tools that you can use to be able to do things. And some of the things that we've used along the way that we commonly get questions about of, why do you use that? So let's get to it. Item number one on our list is a muffin pan. I like to use the muffin pan for a couple of reasons. Number one, models that I'm building, and I can clip them out and put each individual piece into a muffin slot. Other reason that I like to use them is that it allows me to do this on the go. Now I do have this nice hobby space down here, but being down in the basement, in the dungeon, isn't always what I want to do. Maybe I want to go upstairs and watch a movie with the family, and I can take this and trim the pieces. Item number two on the list is containers. Now, containers is kind of a broad statement. However, so let's break it down into a couple different things. First category I would say is bowls. So I have a couple bowls here. These are bowls that we've just collected over the years, older plastic ones. We don't really use them for food anymore. So I use them to build bigger models, similar to how I did the muffin trays. But if I'm building something like maybe a crisis suit or some Terminators, and those pieces aren't necessarily going to fit in the muffin tin, bowls are a fantastic way to do it. Now, along that same lines, another thing that's really helpful is used takeout containers. So this is some used container from a Thai place. These containers are fantastic, especially since they come with a lid. Some of the other containers that I enjoy using as well that really help out with the hobby is yogurt containers. So these containers here, they have a lid on them. I do a lot of airbrushing, and so I can put a little bit in the bottom. I can use them as a slop bucket for leftover airbrushing stuff. I can put my airbrush to soak in here, cover it up, and then now it's ready for me to use it whenever I need to. Now I could do this as well for a couple other things, anything you need to store in there. If you were trying to strip your models, these containers work pretty well. I like to use the ones with the clear tops. I think they work a little bit better because I can see what is inside of them. The other thing that I'm going to put in this container group would be plastic bags. We have a huge collection of bits that we've amassed over the years. If you see all the models behind me, we've kept every bit that has come off of the sprues. Now, we didn't keep the sprues themselves. All the bits from all of those models back there, we've used them throughout the years, and we keep them all categorized in some bags. The other thing, last thing I want to put in the container group is coffee cups. I was kind of hesitant to say coffee cups because I feel like a lot of people use it, and there's tons of memes and jokes out there of people accidentally drinking their paint. I haven't done that yet. We'll see. I've still got a few more years of life in me, so I'm sure I'll do it at some point in time. Item number three on the list, and that's a clothespin. The thing I like to use clothespins the most for is cleaning my brushes. The last thing you want to do is take the brush and let it sit into the cup, point down, just putting all the weight onto the tip of the brush. That's going to ruin your brush. And so what I like to use is a clothespin on a cup. So I'll simply put the brush into the clothespin, and I like to do this with a see-through cup, so that way I can gauge the depth of it. And then take the brush at this point in time and then place it down inside the cup just like this, so it's not putting any pressure whatsoever on it. And I can easily adjust it and put it on the side. Getting creative, I can use several clothespins around it. I've done up to 4, but typically 3 of these work pretty well, and then I can use them to revitalize my brushes and get some extra use out of them. So item number 4, if you have kids, then likely you probably have this item laying around, and that's Play-Doh. Things that I like to do is use it to keep models steady on the table. So if I'm gluing things together, I'm trying to adhere things together, such as this Angron model here. I'm holding up the arm while making sure it doesn't fall off. I can make kind of like one of those little snakes that you're used to making back when, and prop it up and keep it in place where it needs to go. Now, sometimes you might just use some accelerant and super glue, but other times you actually want to have a weld, and it doesn't always fit in place the way you are expecting. So this is where something like Play-Doh comes in really handy. Item number 5, you have wine corks, and wine corks can work for a variety of things within the hobby space. Now, one of the things that people like to do with them is use them as a holder by putting some of that Play-Doh on top of it. You can place a miniature on top of here, and now instead of having to buy that Citadel holder to be able to move your model around and make it easier to paint, you can now use a cork instead. So number 6 is become more popular. I don't know what point in time everybody discovered it. What am I talking about? I'm talking about fidget poppers. So again, if you have kids, you likely have some type of fidget poppers that they got from some type of birthday fiasco that they went to on their friends or their own, and they wanted these little gift things. It works out fantastic because the kids like them for about 5 seconds, they get bored, and then I can swipe them to use them for paint. More specifically, contrast. So contrast paints, kind of a tricky thing. You can't necessarily put them on your wet palette, because if you put them on your wet palette, the water's going to get absorbed into them and ruins it. And more importantly, the contrast is going to get absorbed into the foam of your palette, and it's going to quickly ruin it or tint everything the wrong color. So that's where these fidget poppers have a fantastic use, because you can put the paint inside the little wells that we have here, and then when you're completely done, you actually want to leave it to dry, and then you can simply pop the remnants out over a trash can or pull them off or give it a quick rinse, and all the paint material will come right off of it. So number 7, you've probably used this when you're doing some hobby, and that is some toothpicks. Now, toothpicks come in really handy. I have them in a cup. I use them quite often. I like to use these with some foam. What you can do to be able to make them work is they're about the perfect size for the common part that goes into a model. So say like a Taldrone gargoyles, you can easily take the toothpick and cut it a little bit where it starts to taper and have a flat side. Now this flat side is the part that you can insert into those, and it makes it very, very easy to be able to paint any of these things. So item number 8, I seriously hope that everybody has at least one in their house. And if you don't, you should get one. You really should. I think your friends might appreciate it. And that's a toothbrush. So I use it for a large variety of things, one of them being cleaning off the print plate. I can use the brush and scrub it for that. If I am cleaning up models and they have a large amount of dust or flash that are on them that I've maybe trimmed off, and it's hard to tell what's there and what isn't, so I can use the toothbrush and kind of brush that off. If you are cleaning or stripping your models, you can use toothbrush while inside the material it's submerged. Have a glove on your other hand, you can hold it and actually clean the material off of it to help get the extra grime off of it. I also use a toothbrush to be able to clean my airbrush out quite often. So I usually keep a couple of these floating around where I have one at my airbrush station, I have one at my cleaning station, I have one at my resin station, I'll have one over here with my hobby station when I'm cleaning parts off and trimming them, getting ready to glue them. So again, there's a large variety of things that you can use the toothbrush for. That kind of brings me to the next item, and that's a nail file. Now you can go out and buy sanding files. They make all these nice little cool tools that you can get into pieces and you can file them and do all sorts of things. But these nail files actually work quite handily. You can use them on a part and sand off the rough edges instead of maybe using a knife, or you need to smooth something out. They're relatively cheap that you can get from a dollar store and get a whole pack of them versus going and buying special files for hobby use. You can use these and get them quite cheaply at the dollar store. So another valuable tool, especially for airbrushing or painting, would be Q-tips. Now I keep a large amount of these by my airbrush station. That's probably the thing that I use them for the most. I can clean the cup out and make sure that all of the extra bits that might be floating around in there are cleaned up, and I don't have any spillover that's going to happen between the paints and cause some issues. I also keep a couple handy, so when I'm painting and I might make a quick mistake and dab up the paint before it dries and causes a mess onto my model. So we have 2 items left on our list. Number 11 is PVA glue. Then you probably have some type of glue floating around. Now myself, I actually happen to have some of this around for craft projects as an invaluable tool for making dioramas, which we definitely like to do. Number 12 on the list is actually a spray bottle. So you can actually buy an all-purpose spray bottle yourself. You can repurpose a spray bottle that you might have for something else. Now, I use this specifically for washes. I know that sounds kind of odd. Why would you use it for washes? They come in this little tiny container that you get from Games Workshop. What I'm talking about is making your own washes. Now, there's a lot of cool tutorials out there. One that I particularly like is the recipe from Black Magic Craft. He reformulated or swiped it from somebody else. I forget the exact story because it was a couple of years ago when I swiped it from him. But I will make my own wash and then put it in this spray bottle. When I'm mass making terrain, having a spray bottle to be able to apply it with, I don't have to go in and put a brush in there and slather it all over. I can spray it, and then if I want to wipe it down and remove some of that, I can easily do it with paper towel, which is what I might do anyways. A good example of that is if you take a look at all of this dungeon terrain that I have here. This was actually done with that method where we base coated it. In this case, we did gray, and then I took this spray bottle, sprayed all of the terrain, wiped it down, let it dry brush it, and had some pretty nice looking terrain relatively quickly. One of the things I like doing is sharing the tools that we use with other people, the tips, the tricks that we found in our hobby journey, and being able to get feedback from other people and see some of their tools and get some of their tips just helps us all out. So make sure you share that stuff down below in the comments. Make sure you hit a like, and if you haven't subscribed to us, subscribe. So hopefully you can use some of these hobby tips to be able to make your life easier when you're trying to enjoy your downtime. And until next time, when we see you at the table.